Thank you for joining us for the Best Practices for Permit Automation in California webinar. My name is Serenity Lombard. I am a sales associate here for SMARTGov, and I am joined today by John Bird, who is the sales executive. The webinar is going to last about 60 minutes today. We have it scheduled from 11 to noon. The audio is either streamed over your computer speakers, or you can dial into the conference phone number that's located in the webinar window. And you should be able to see the SMARTGov screen slide deck at this time. We will have a question and answer series that will last for about 10 minutes at the end of the webinar. During the webinar, though, please feel free to chat through any questions that you might have. There's a little chat window that you can do that with, and I'll try to have them answered during the webinar, or we'll save them for the last 10 minutes. Today's discussion is going to go over a number of things. One, we're going to just introduce Paladin Data Systems and the SMARTGov software. We will also be discussing best practices for permit automation in California, and also demonstrate automation features via SMARTGov with a demo of the system. Like I said, there'll be a question and answer portion, and then we'll go over the SMARTGov Advantage and how the software can help your jurisdiction. Paladin Data Systems was formed in 1994 as a software products and development company. We are located in Paulsbo, Washington, about 45 minutes outside of Seattle, Washington. You have to take a short ferry boat ride to Paulsbo, a beautiful part of the country. This is a picture of some of our employees. Not everybody is listed there, but you get the idea of our organization. This slide is going over the SMARTGov timeline just to give you an idea of how long we have been in the permitting field for. Back in 2002, we were approached by a local jurisdiction here, Kitsap County, Washington. They needed a solution to track their permits and inspections, code enforcement, etc. And we developed a custom software solution for them. It was very successful. They're still a client to this day, and at that time we decided to develop that into a software solution for local government. It was based in Oracle and called interlocking software. By 2005, we had deployed interlocking software for 8 more local jurisdictions. Kept on going with the success into 2010. We had 23 local governments in the Northwest region using interlocking. We decided in 2010 that we wanted to re-architect the product and bring it from the Oracle backend into .NET SQL Server technology, adding a lot of features and functionality into the software and bringing it into a cloud solution. And this is the productized permitting software that came about with SMARTGov. We started selling SMARTGov in mid-2011, and by 2012 we had doubled our permitting customers and are now represented all across the country in all 4 time zones. We have clients in states such as North Carolina, New Hampshire, Georgia, Florida, Colorado, just really all over the place. And into 2013, we introduced a newly enhanced public portal for self-help citizen access 24/7 online. We now have over 50 jurisdictions using Paladin permitting software, and we are currently introducing SMARTGov into the California market. The best practices for permitting automation in California webinar will cover 5 basic ideas. 1 is liberating your data using cloud deployment. 2, start leveraging big data, which is a term many of you have heard. 3, standardizing repeatable processes. 4, extending your public services online. And 5, really considering the big picture pitfalls to avoid when selecting a new vendor. And at this time, I'm going to pass over the demo to John Bird, my colleague. And please feel free to chat through questions.
Thank you, Serenity, and thank you, each of you that are online with us today. We're excited to share with you some of our experiences. As Serenity mentioned, having a great deal of experience across the country in the world of permit tracking and inspection management and code enforcement and so on, there's really a lot that we like to share when we can, and that's kind of what our intention is today. Just kind of share with you some of the best practices that we're seeing and that we're using across the country as we see them apply, and specifically for those of you in the California area. The first idea here that we want to really get into and kind of open up a little bit is the idea of liberating your data via a cloud deployment. Now, there's different ways to deploy a software system such as a permit and inspection system. One would be where your IT group hosts it on site, and they have their own server and data center, and they serve it up over your local area network. And that's still a viable, absolutely viable way of doing things. But again, in terms of best practices, some of the trends that are really beginning to take hold, that's kind of the new stuff here. It's really what we want to cover. And so that's where hosting in the cloud comes in. I might first define the cloud just a little bit. What is it? Really, I would say think of a cloud deployment much like if you're doing private banking online and you go to a secure website and you log in with a personal login, username and password, and then it shares, once you do that, you now have access to your private and personal account information. That's an example of a cloud type of application. We're seeing this in all industries, certainly in the permit and inspection tracking industry as well, and we're doing that quite a lot. Just as an anecdote, and Serenity, you'll probably can vouch for this as well, when we started offering cloud services here at Paladin a little over 2.5 years ago, government organizations weren't initially excited about that.
Yeah, that's right.
But over time, it's interesting because the government organizations, IT groups are much more comfortable with that. And in fact, a lot of times we get calls saying, can you offer it in the cloud? And that's what's being requested. The idea of a cloud-based deployment is that your data is being managed off-site in a data center that is not yours. And so that means, on the plus side, that means that there's no system hardware for you to manage. There's no system software for you to manage. There is not an operating system that you have to keep compliant with the limitations of a system or what have you. In addition to that, with most cloud-based solutions, certainly with our SMARTGov cloud-based solution, the backup processes are being managed in the cloud as well. And the DBA, or the database administration functions, all of those things are being taken care of in the cloud as well. One of the advantages of a cloud-based deployment then is that all of the firewall requirements are being also managed by the cloud, and so it's available anywhere. In other words, anywhere you have an internet connection, you can now access not only your data, but the application that processes your data. And again, we're seeing this all the time, all across the country, where maybe you've got inspectors that are heading out in the field and they need to access your permit and inspection tracking system. They need to access all of the attachable documents that might be stored there. They need to access all of the workflows and protocols and requirements. When it's a cloud-based system, and if they have a 3G, 4G device capable out in the field, they can simply access that internet application at any time, at any place. And so what you really begin to see is that your data now takes on a whole new aspect of usability, because you can access it if you're on travels, if you're in your home office, you can access it, and you really do begin to liberate some of the restrictions that in a previous context might have existed. The other thing that you're going to see, and we'll talk a little bit about this as we get going further, is that the ability to take that data in the cloud and then port it into additional environments. One would be for your public, for your citizens, to be able to easily present that on a public portal platform to your citizens so that the citizen now can look at public record information, such as permit information, even inspection information. If you choose, you decide what you want to present to the public, but we're in the day and age of open records requirements, and so being able to leverage some of the benefits of the cloud really means that that data can be used in greater ways than previously was possible. Now, That takes care of transparency issues. But the other thing that I'll mention briefly is the security aspect of that. In a Tier 1 type cloud, which would be a really robust cloud like Amazon, like Windows Azure, like an IBM cloud or those types, security is very, very high. And so what we'd use with SMARTGov is the Amazon cloud, and so the security components are significant. All the data is encrypted, 128-bit encryption, and so you really get a robust system that's highly secure, that begins to work in a modern mindset in kind of a Web 3.0 kind of perspective. And so that's what I want to talk about a little bit here. With that, what I'm going to do is move over to just to illustrate some of these ideas here. What I've done here is I've opened up a web browser here at this point. And for example, you can see that I've got a Yahoo website here, and I could go to my Yahoo Mail or what have you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this other tab, and I've got this secure website on right now, which is SMARTGov, and I simply need to log in. Just like I would maybe for, like I said, the private banking or personal banking. And when I do that, it's going to present the data to me that's specific to my organization, of course, but the jurisdiction that I'm with. But it's also going to present this screen in the way that I have personally defined how I want the system to work. And so really kind of the first illustration I want to make here is that with a web-based application, a lot of times people think that it's only going to have partial functionality. It's only going to have a limited set of features, and it's really not the case. In today's world, web-based or cloud-based applications are just as full-featured as if they were hosted on-site with your local IT group. And so, to just illustrate a couple of things here, I can go into this preferences area, and as an individual, I can kind of tune my home page a little bit. These are various widgets, for example, that depending on my role might be useful to me. A permit tech's going to be looking at different data than, say, a code enforcement officer, and yet again different than, say, a department head or a director. So depending on what my role is, various widgets that might make sense for me, which I can turn on or off, move them up or down on my screen, and do the things that I need to do. And these charts are interactive. I can click on a bar and see the data that represents that particular bar of information, and I can change maybe the date range of the data that I'd be looking at, last 6 months, last year, what have you, and change some of the display characteristics. But really the idea here that I want to show is that in a cloud-based application, a modern cloud-based application, it's really full-featured. I'll give you another example here. If I come into this common area, and I have a list of parcels. This is a repository of parcels for my jurisdiction, and you can see that when I come in here, I've got over 21,000 parcels in my database here, and I can open up any one of these parcels, and I can see on a parcel level ownership information, latitude, longitude, coordinates. If there's a genealogy of ownership, previous owners, and so on that's from my assessor's data, I can store that in here as well. I can see the address information, and again, you might have a parcel that has more than one address, maybe a commercial parcel with multiple retail outfits on it, and I could see all of those addresses. I could even see things like all of the permits over time that have been taken out against a certain parcel, and I could click one of these open and see it. I could see a list of complaints or code enforcement actions that could exist against a parcel, and maybe there's custom notes that I'd like to attach against a parcel, or maybe track the zoning attributes and legal descriptions and so on. All of these things are available to me in a web-based application, in a cloud-based applications. And I'll give you maybe another example. If I come over to a list of contacts, you can see here I've got over 200,000 contacts in my repository here of SMARTGov. And again, these are contacts specific for my jurisdictions. These might be property owners, they might be contractors, and so really quite robust in what I have available to me in a cloud-based solution, in a modern cloud-based solution. And the other thing that I'll mention in terms of a cloud-based solution such as SMARTGov is that one of the things we do, and this again is a trend amongst cloud deployment systems, is that when we deploy SMARTGov in the cloud, we offer 3 instances of it. We offer, number one, of course, would be the production instance, where that's where you're live and you're actually tracking all your information and processing data and so on. But in addition to that is we offer a support instance. That support instance is where our help desk would go to troubleshoot something that might be an anomaly or an issue that you're facing, and we could go in and look at what's going on in your support instance without damaging or potentially harming your production. A third instance would be a training instance, and this would be for you and your staff to go in and try out new configurations just to see how it works without, prior to making it live on your production instance. So you really have a lot of functionality with a cloud-based solution, as much, if not more, functionality on a cloud-based solution than if you're hosting it on site. So I really think that that's an important aspect, is that the robustness of a cloud-based solution. The other thing as well, as I move back to my slides here, is that SMARTGov, for example, is a true web-based application, and because we're using the Amazon cloud for our deployment, is that you really can access a system like this, and that's where I get into the idea of liberating that data, really decoupling it from the limitations of an internal firewall. And now all of a sudden you're able to really present that in other fashions and ways. But in addition to that is that we're able to offer kind of the gold standard in terms of service level agreement. The robustness of the Amazon cloud enables us to offer a 99% uptime guarantee of the SMARTGov application. So again, think in terms of any type of system, whether it's hosted locally by your local IT group or even in the cloud, it's going to have downtime. That's just a function of managing that system and enhancing it and doing patches and backups and all of those things. So there's going to be naturally some downtime. But the great thing about a cloud solution such as this is that uptime can come with a guarantee of 99% uptime guarantee. So it really is very secure in terms of knowing what's available to you and how often that's always going to be available to you. The other thing that I think is key to mention, and we see this, we see the full gamut in cloud-based systems in terms of data ownership. And I think it's super important because jurisdictions across the country don't want to give up ownership, and they really shouldn't give up ownership. And there are some systems and some vendors that want to offer cloud-based things, but take ownership of that data. In a system like SMARTGov, you own that data, and Amazon's not making any claim of ownership. Certainly, Paladin does not either, and so that data is owned by you. And furthermore, I think it's really, really important to connect this dot as well, because Amazon data centers are located around the country. You might want to pull that data down out of the Amazon cloud, and it would come down in the SMARTGov system. It would come in a SQL Server database, and then you would be able to store that on your own server, be able to build SQL Server reports on your own data on your own server if you choose, or simply just store it for your own backup purposes. And you can do that on demand. You can do that every single day if you want to, all of your data. Some organizations like that feature, but they really want to do that just once a week or once a month or what have you. But again, that's available to you to pull all of your data down as often as you like. And I think that, again, this kind of speaks to the open data requirements that are really coming up in the state of California, being able to have that data available, share it out, but still maintain control and security of it. So all of those features should come with any cloud-based system. And also, of course, unlimited phone support and help desk support is something that should come with any cloud-based application, and certainly would with SMARTGov. As we move forward here, a second best practice that again we're using and we're seeing fairly prolific around the country is the idea of starting to leverage big data in terms of better accuracy and better tools. Now, stick with me here, because let's define this. What is big data? And I'm just going to give you a fairly succinct definition of big data for our purposes today. Big data is when powerful server farms are used to process vast databases, yielding higher accuracy in data analysis than was previously available. And of course, we all know that as computer capabilities grow in terms of processing power, and as storage capabilities grow in terms of quantity, what's happening is we're moving exponentially into significantly larger amounts of data. And kind of the industry's kind of coined this term big data, but all it really means is that there's been an exponential leap forward in the quantity of data that we're able to store, and thereby the analytics ran against those larger data sets are beginning to yield what seems to be higher accuracy in analytics. So you're getting into predictive and analytics and highly accurate in risk analysis and resource management and so on. So that's kind of component one, is being able to yield higher accuracy. But in addition to that, big data is when multiple server farms are interconnected across industries to create powerful new sets of data and new digital tools and services. So there's a lot here, but really what we're talking about is an exponential growth in data and data processing power, and then a connectedness between server farms where we're being able to pull data across disciplines, across industries together to all of a sudden get kind of a three-dimensional view of the world, so to speak. And so there's a lot there, but in terms of SMARTGov, what might that mean? And I'm just going to give you a couple of quick ideas in terms of pulling different sources together, or different systems or technologies together for an enhanced tool set. If I go into this preferences area, I'm going to show you what we call event subscription. An event subscription is the idea that a permit or a project or inspection or what have you can have various discrete moments in time whereby you might want to know that milestone just passed. So for example, I could say I want to subscribe to this very first event, which is anytime a new task is added to my personal work queue in SMARTGov, I want to know about that. By checking this box and by putting my email in here, I'm now bridging from this SMARTGov cloud-based system over into the email world of my jurisdiction email system, and now I'm communicating between this cloud-based system and my internal email protocols. And so I'm telling SMARTGov to proactively email me about various things. I'll give you another example. Maybe notify me when a permit state has changed to canceled. If something's been canceled, maybe that's important to me. So I'm going to say, yeah, please email me. And then this SMARTGov says, well, for which departments? Now I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to get a list of departments that my jurisdiction has configured. And so I can simply pick the permits in which department that I'm concerned about. Maybe it's building and maybe it's planning that are specific to my role. And so I select those, and now I've just subscribed to this event. And so again, what we're doing here is, by virtue of interconnected server farms essentially, and the internet protocols, is we're able to connect SMARTGov through email over into your internal system and be able to create some powerful notification tools. Some of these notification tools relate to the public portal. We're going to look at the public portal shortly, but again, that's yet another platform whereby you are sharing you're sharing the permitting data that you choose with your citizens in a powerful way. But now this says, please update me when a citizen or an applicant updates some of their information via that public portal. So if this makes sense here, we're really connecting a lot of different things, a lot of technology sets or tools here. So that's one idea. I'll save those changes. And now if I go over to my workspace area, what I'm going to show you is the power in a big data context of really being able to quickly filter, and it's kind of a small example here, filter all of my records within my jurisdiction, across my entire jurisdiction. And I think I've timed out here, so I'm going to sign out and re-sign in. And hopefully that will take care. There we go. So what I want to show you is the idea of being able to take, this is kind of one example of big data in a sense, only this is limited to what I have just in my jurisdiction, but you'll get the idea. If I start with this list of all applications here, these are all my permits and projects within my jurisdiction. I have over 9,000 records, and it's very easy for me to start with this large list, but crunch it down to a select group or a single record, and that's a two-step process for me to do that. I'm going to first select an attribute, and second, I'm going to add a value to the attribute in order to find what I'm looking for. And the first attribute, a list of attributes right here, I could filter by contact email, contact name, or by the department, or license number, or so on and so forth. In addition, though, is I can toggle my list right here, and I want you to get how significant this is. This is now a new list of attributes, and these are custom attributes defined by your organization. So the first list SMARTGov delivers to you, but this is a list that you can now create as many data components or attributes as you want and filter your entire database in SMARTGov against those custom attributes. So that really adds a new tool and a new feature, but what I'm going to do is go back to this hard-coded list, and let's just pick department, for example. Step 2, I'm going to add a value to this attribute, and I'm going to say, just show me those in the building department. When I add this to my list, search, I'm down to 5,400 records. That's still a lot, so let's add another attribute here. And how about we go with submitted date? And now I can select various element ranges here or a custom range. I'm just going to say those in the last 90 days and add that to my list. Now I'm down to 33 records. I could just as well search by an address or a name of an applicant or what have you, and I can really quickly get down to just a couple of records or even a single records very quickly. But once I've done this, there's a number of things I can do. Maybe I want to show a little bit different data columns on my screen. I want to show you what I mean by that. Let me bring over the applicant name. Again, depending on my role in the jurisdiction, I'm going to bring over the due amount as well. Depending on your role, different elements of data are going to be important to you. So this gives you the ability to really tune this data to what you're looking for. Now I've got the applicant name in the first column, and I have the amount that's due over here. I just brought that in. And I can sort, or I can order it based on ascending or descending, and there's lots of things I can do there. But in addition to all of this, I can save this list if I'd like to, give it a name, and I can add that to my list. I've got a number of saved filters already. But I can also take this information and pull it right out, send it right to a print driver, turns this into an HTML page, and I can quickly pull data out of my database here. So again, some of the tools that you don't always see, and this is a cloud-based application, very robust. All the things you would want to see, in a big data type of context. And in addition to that, I can pull up a map, and I can display these on a map. And so there's a lot of things built in. And this mapping is yet another example of this idea of big data where we're connecting one server farm to a totally different server farm. And in this context, it could be that you have layers from your own GIS department, and maybe you'd want to add those into the system. So here we are starting in the Amazon cloud, but we're now reaching out of the Amazon cloud into your local jurisdiction's GIS web services to now display right here on SMARTGov a parcel layer. And in addition to displaying that parcel layer, I might want to zoom in and even click on a parcel and find out who owns that parcel, or click on a different parcel and do that. So there's really a lot of capability that should be, and nowadays can be, built into a big data type of context. Quickly, in addition to some of those things, and I'll just mention here, is the ability to pull data out with an ad hoc reporter. Now, Ad hoc gives you the ability then to, we have a number of pre-built reports, but in an ad hoc report writer, if I open this up, you would have the ability to create your own reports, tabular reports, that you could then schedule them to run on a certain frequency, have those emailed to a certain person automatically, or you could share these reports so that anybody else could run them as they see fit. And unlimited amount of reports that you can create and store and run. So lots of capabilities with that. As we move back over to the slide deck, just to summarize in terms of leveraging some of the big data capabilities, you know, GIS mapping is one of the real key things that's really very popular to bring geospatial visualization to your data. And the public portal, again, which we'll look at shortly, is yet another example of that, which even includes online payments. So yet again, another technology, online payments, where we reach out to a payment vendor and we're connecting. It's kind of a mashup of technology now. We're connecting the payment process right into this cloud-based deployment. And so bottom line of all of that is we've worked really hard on all of our deployments and the SMARTGov product to make it big data ready so that all the features and functions that you would need are there. Third idea here in terms of best practices is to standardize repeatable processes. And by doing this, you're able to leverage the power of replication. You know, and what can happen oftentimes is that maybe an applicant comes to a front counter to apply for a permit, and depending on who the permit tech is at the counter at the time, it's going to be processed a little bit differently by every person. And, you know, and that's probably okay in some regards, but when you can standardize all of your processes, you really begin to streamline your efficiencies, and you begin to build in points of analytical data, because it's always processed in the same way. Now I can put in measurement points, and I can begin to see where bottlenecks are, if that's the case, and where opportunities for improvement can be, and so on. System like SMARTGov, we really start with a template, and a lot of systems do that as well, but it's key on how you set those templates up, how simple it can be for you to then change those templates. And I'm just going to show you a little bit about that today. Reports, I mentioned those as well. Your ability to not only have the right reports you need, but to be able to go in over time and change those, because requirements change. And you need to go in and update those so that it's a standardized process, but it's an evolving process at the same time. And when you're able to do that, the other thing that you experience is user compliance. Your internal staff tends to go up, because once those standards come into place and it works the same every time, anyone can jump into the middle of that process, into the middle of a business rule or a business process, and function quite well with that as they would need to. And so just to illustrate a couple of things here, I'm going to go over to the administrative area. A system like SMARTGov, you would define who your administrators are. Not everyone would be an administrator, but those that are could come in here, and they could come into permit setup. And I'm going to go to permit types. And under permit types, notice this is a list similar to what we had before. I've got the same navigational tools. I've got some attributes selected. I could add values to those attributes and filter this, but what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to page forward. This is a relatively small list, so it won't take me long. I'm just going to page forward to my single-family residential new construction. Let's use this as an example. And in terms of standardizing the process, this is how I define what a single-family residential permit looks like. And I can start with the idea of how are we going to number this thing. It can have its own numbering convention. So the way I've got this set up is I want a three-letter SFR to represent single-family residential, followed by I want a 4-digit year, and then I want a 3-digit sequence. And you can, here are some tokens that can kind of guide you through how to set these up. But you can configure this numbering convention to mimic or match whatever you want it to be. And once you've got that numbering convention set up, now every time I create an SFR, a new construction, it's going to be numbered in exactly the way that I've defined it to do. I can also say, is a parcel required for this or not? I simply check this box. This is where I can define, hey, do I want to publish this on the portal for citizens to be able to make application on the portal? Maybe I don't. Maybe this is too robust of a permit. I don't want to put that process out on the portal, or maybe I do. But I can also go into things like expiration rules, and I can define what my expiration rules are for every state that this permit could exist in, and so on. And I can create these requirements. I can also, under the submittals, say these are the documents that I need to be brought in, so that every time a permit is created, these are the documents brought in. And it's super easy to change this. I'm just going to give a quick example. I could say now and forevermore what we really need is this approved site plan. I would like to see that be brought in, and I'm going to move that to the top of my list. And you know, this appraisal thing, I don't think we need that anymore, so we're going to delete that. And we're going to hit save. And now that we've changed this template and we've kind of standardized how this works, and by standardizing it, I'm even including the plan review process. If I come over here and I can see which steps need to occur, planning, engineering, who needs to be engaged in, who do I want to assign these various steps to, various people or departments. I'm going to set that all up so that I've created a process. And now that I do that, now I'm going to go into this permit creation wizard. And you can see how simple this is. Again, we've standardized this creation process that I say, well, which department I'm looking for. I pick from the departments, but I'm going to look for an SFR. It says which parcel do you want. Notice parcels required as per the template that we just looked at. I'm just going to grab a parcel at random here, and I'm going to hit create. And at this point, based on the defined template, SMARTGov is going to create this permit. And what I'm going to do is take you right to this Submittals tab. You can see what we changed. You remember we added the requirement of an approved site plan, and we deleted the requirement of an appraisal. There's no appraisal, but you now see the site plan. So this gives you the ability to update or change or refine your processes, your protocol, your configuration, I should say, at any time. But once you've updated that, it's going to be processed in the same way by every person, because the system requires that this be received, So all of these things need to be received. And so it's really a powerful way to standardize your processes and move forward in a way. The other thing that I'll mention is that reports and output documents. I could say, show me what a permit might look like. By standardizing these reports right into the system, anytime someone needs to create a report or an output document, notice I've got a watermark in this case because this is not really issued, not ready to be sent out. But I've got a formatted document here. It's going to look the same every time. It's going to merge all the appropriate data in. So it's super easy, super efficient for me to create whatever documents I need on the fly and be able to give those to the applicant and process things as I need to. So, you know, with that, standardizing things is really key in terms of your templates, all of the, you know, submittal requirements, workflow, and so on. Even inspections, you can get very specific with that. But also the reports, as I mentioned, there's a lot of tools that for example, in SMARTGov, you would have for standardizing, but that's really a key, is being able to standardize that so that regardless of who's processing something, it's going to be processed the same way. Now we'll move into this fourth idea here, which is to extend your public services online. And the idea here is that, boy, this is really becoming popular, is that the ability to present some transparency around public record information. And certainly I know that you get requests from the public on sending information, but think in terms of providing a tool for citizens to be able to find data on their own. That doesn't mean you're not going to help, of course, but when they can do it on their own, that really satisfies a lot of requests and a lot of the expectations for the public. And so, you know, a public portal could and should be a 24/7 type of thing. It can have advanced functionality such as the ability to submit a digital document to that public portal. ability to pay fees, the ability to schedule inspections, or even submit complaints and all of those things. And I guess just, quick idea here is that a public portal should be an extension of your front counter. So in other words, all of those services that you can offer at your front counter should be available on a public portal. And so if you go with me here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bring in an example of our public portal here. And so this public portal is very basic or simple, I should say, but it's very robust in what it can offer. If I come in, I've got 3 simple buttons, but I can click on any one of these, and now I have more tools. Or I can go back, I can click on a public notice button, and I have some specific disclaimers and things that might apply to public notices. Or under Contact Us, I can go into there, and now I've got some more options for me. But what I really want to show to start with is the ability for the public to come in, actually under this permitting area, and do an advanced search. This is going to enable people to see what's taking place in their community in terms of public records. And I could search for a specific permit if I knew one by number, or I could say, you know what, just show me all of a certain type of permits, maybe commercial new construction. From here I could put additional requirements or attributes like only show me those that have been issued, maybe, or only show me those that are submitted on a certain date, or so on. Let's just go with the issued commercial permits. And now when I hit search, it shows me that I've got 9 results. So I say, okay, great, that's this, and I can now click on some of these and take a look. Maybe I want to open this one up, and I'm able to see even the fee amount that's due. I'm able to see the contacts and the contractors that are involved in this permit, as well as custom details that might be a part of this permit. I can look at the parcel number and submittals required. But here's an important point I want you to understand is that if you choose, you don't have to publish each and all of these items to the public. You can publish the basic header information of the permit and let that be it. You can suppress the contacts and the contractors and the details. It's up to you. You have lots of control to do what you want, but you might choose to publish all of that. You have choices. But the other thing is I could take all of these and say, well, show me those on a map. So very powerful now for the public to be able to take a look at some of the mapping tools that you have available on the back office. So again, this is an example of how server farms are able to reach across the internet and connect and bring in tools in a dynamic way, tools that are not housed in the same server farm. So layers that might be from your jurisdiction. Maybe it's a wetland. Let's turn on my wetlands, and maybe it's streams. And as I zoom in, I begin to see in a very powerful way we're pulling in data again across server farms. I've got these streams now, and I've got some wetlands showing. So really powerful tools that are available here. But in addition to this is let's log in. Let's pretend that we're maybe a contractor or we're an applicant, and I can now log in. Well, I think I updated my password, and I can't log in today. If I'm logged in, I'm going to be able to see exactly what my fees are that are due, my inspections, and I can schedule an inspection. I can get a list of all of my permits, and I can see those that are issued status, that are pending, or even closed, and I can take a look at what's available there. And again, this becomes kind of a nexus point for me then to submit documents, to pay my fees, to request inspections. And our calendar widget that's built into the public portal, it's going to block out days that are already full. It's going to block out calendar or holidays as you've defined which days are holidays. And so again, very, very powerful to be able to take your back office functionality and your front counter services and extend that now online in a self-help way so that the public and the citizens are able to interact with you in that fashion. And so with that, let's go. There we go. One of the things that we see across the country is when you begin offering a public portal is that oftentimes your fee collection tends to go up because simple permits that oftentimes citizens might avoid, now they can do it so much more easily, is that they will go ahead and do those on a public portal. But in addition, what we see is satisfaction level tends to go up quite a bit because there's so much ability for the public then to be more informed and to be empowered to really work with you, that it becomes kind of more of a partnership. So I think that's very important to bring that out. Last item that I want to cover today is the idea of considering, the big picture. And really what I want to look at here, just on a high level, is different categories. When you're looking for automating your permitting, you're going to be looking for one option would be best-of-breed systems. And that generally refers to a system that's really designed for a specific function, so it's considered best of breed. If you look at all the permitting systems out there, some are designed specifically for community development departments, and those are considered best of breed. They tend to be more specialized and they have higher set of features. The downside, if you want to consider this, is that oftentimes best of breed solutions have a lower capability for integrating to other systems, such as your finance system, such as even your parcel data, for example, or other systems that are internal that you need to be taken care of. So then a lot of times you'd look at your second option, which would be enterprise resource planning systems, or ERP systems. ERP systems tend to span across your entire organization, your entire government. And they provide a finance system and an HR system and an asset management system, and all of the components across your entire organization. The difficulty with an ERP type of system is they tend to be generalized because they offer so many different modules, is that they can't really focus highly on one specific area. And so the feature set tends to be a bit lower, so you sacrifice some of the features. But on the plus side, you do get a high integration with all the other departments throughout your organization because it's an ERP single system. But again, a lot of times ERPs cater to a single department, and then the functionality in the permit and inspection and planning world tends to be fairly limited. The other thing is ERPs can be very expensive and fairly difficult to deploy. So really kind of the best practice that is a trend that we're seeing is kind of a third option, and that's when you take a best-of-breed type of solution, but you architect it around what's referred to as service-oriented architecture. In other words, you build the components of that system so that it can leverage web services via all the big data stuff we've already talked about, and it can plug other components into it, or it can be plugged into other components in a very cost-effective but full-featured way. And you might refer to this as SOA. And software like SMARTGov is that type of a system. So you really get the best of both worlds. You get the specialized feature sets from a best-of-breed system, but you also get a highly integrated, capable system whereby you can plug into your finance system and those types of things. And so, looking for my other browser here. There we are. And so, just to illustrate a couple of things here as we're coming to a conclusion, and I hope there's some questions that might come in here. But some of the templates that we were looking at, in defining a permit. Again, if I go back in here, and we'll just open up a commercial. permit here. But we get really granular specifics. If I go into what I want to show you is this workflow area. And this is where the plan review is configured. And you have a lot of capabilities to set total duration for a certain plan review step. And you can estimate how many hours that step might take. I can get some of the sub-steps that are required to perform that step. In order to complete this building review, I need to check for additional information. I need to make sure it's approved. I need to check the parent application and so on and so forth. But in addition to this is I can create step dependencies when that's required. Sometimes maybe this final engineering won't be assigned until the previous engineering step's been completed, so I have the capability of doing that right here. I can add a base step to it. Or another example would be how I would assign this. This one is assigned to the engineering department, but maybe what I want to add is a group. I'm going to see my list of groups here. Maybe I want to add that to a crew of people. I can organize all of my users into crews or groups or departments or whatever. And so I have a lot of abilities to work with some specifics that that only your department might need, and every department can have their own set of this. So the granularity of this becomes really specific. And then I can even have this is my work queue, and this is where I can come in and perform my work. And so it's very granular with what I can do here. I can open up this particular inspection, for example, and I can see that there are some holds and some tags placed on this particular permit for various reasons that I might need to look at. So you get a high set of features, a rich set of features for a system like SMARTGov, and yet I still can connect this with other systems, and this is where I want to show you at this point. If I want to come in here under Jobs. Jobs is a list of automated functions which can be run on demand or can be scheduled to run by themselves. And a job would be something like connecting to a receipt extract, whereby I'm pulling all my financial transactions out at the close of the business day. And this is going to be into a delimited file, batch file, that's ready to import straight into my financial general ledger system. And maybe it's a parcel load. I'm going to pull my parcel data out. Maybe it's a database extract where, if you remember at the beginning, I said you can pull all of your data out of the system and store it on your own server. All of these features are built in, and so these are integration points. And of course, the other one that we've mentioned before was the mapping integration, and all of these mapping layers that we're going to be able to bring in from your system or different systems. And we provide a couple of base layers out of the box for you. So the idea here is that to be able to really do what you need to do in a system these days, having service-oriented architecture is a real key in getting a high level of features and super tight integration with all of your other applications across your organization, your jurisdiction, and doing that in a context that is the most affordable that you can do. And so that's something I really want to point you to. I think it's really important. With that in mind, boy, I've covered a lot of ground, and there might be some questions. Serenity, do we have any?
Yeah, we do. We have a few questions, actually. Regarding the GIS and the mapping that you were showing, can that be linked to the ArcMap for a visual map for a jurisdiction? Is that linked to ArcMap?
Yeah, so Esri's ARC server, that's generally what we're connecting with. The two base layer maps that we provide out of the box happen to be Esri maps. That's the satellite image and the road image. But yeah, if you're, we like to use web services when we can to connect to whatever ARC map layers you might have, which again could be zoning, could be sewer infrastructure, critical areas. I mean, sky's the limit. It could be anything such as that.
Great. Also, can you touch on if we are offering electronic plan review?
Well, that's a good question. Electronic plan review, I kind of define that in two ways. One would be the process of routing assigned plan review steps to various people. And certainly we do that in SMARTGov, and in fact I just showed some of that where you create task assignments and they show up in someone's work queue. So that's one definition of electronic plan review. My suspicion, though, is that the question regards what I would consider the second definition, which is the actual notation, digital notation on digital plans. That's my guess. There's a handful of options for that. We don't provide that right now out of the box, but there are a number of systems that can be used for that, and we can point you to some that are very cost effective, and others which are a little bit more expensive. But again, through the power of web services, cloud platforms and so on, is we can reach across and bridge or mash up different technologies into SMARTGov. And electronic document markup is one of those. Now, I guess the other thing I will mention, we are discussing right now what it will take, and I suspect within a year or so we will have an additional module that will provide that for us as well. But in the meantime, yeah, there's certainly other systems that we could connect to, and we can point you to those.
Great. Another question, are we selling the subscription based on the number of departments or the number of users, or how is that pricing determined for local government?
Yeah, pricing is really kind of, at least for us, is in three categories. One would be for the software itself. If we're hosting it in the cloud, that's going to be a subscription. You just pay an annual fee, and that's carte blanche, covers all of the modules. It covers all of the capabilities. Yeah, thank you. The maintenance and support, help desk features, all of that. Yes. And so that's a subscription base. Now, if you're hosting it on your own site, because that's still an option, and some organizations are going to want to go that route, and that's going to be a perpetual license for us, and that's going to be a one-time perpetual license, and then you'd pay a maintenance fee each year just to keep the support up and to keep the enhancements and so on. So the software itself is going to be one fee. Another fee would be interfaces, where we're building these web services and these connections to other technologies that you're going to need. And those are one-time fees that we charge. And a third category would be services to go along with implementation. Those are, again, one-time fees, but those would be things like training, migrating legacy data into the system, helping you with configuration, helping you establish fees into the system, and so on. So it's going to be a combination of services, interface creation, and then the software component itself. And I guess to answer the question more specific, software is based on total users. So the more users you have, that's how we scale that up.
And then back to GIS, somebody's asking, they have additional layers beyond the two that are included for free. Is there a cost, a one-time cost to get those layers imported into SMARTGov?
Yeah, so that would be one of our connectors as well, to be able to bring layers into the system, whichever ones that you would want brought in. So yeah, that's a one-time cost for you to get those in and usable.
And one more question. Who owns the data if it's hosted in the cloud?
Yeah, again, you own your data, and we respect that very much. That's yours. Some jurisdictions and even some states have regulations on that, laws on that. So it's your data. You always have access to it. You can pull a full copy at any time, and yeah, no worries. It's definitely your data. I guess as we just conclude here, a couple of quick ideas, in terms of unleashing or decoupling your data from firewalls, internal firewalls. There's really a lot of benefit to that. At least it's worth considering. A system like SMARTGov gives you a 99% uptime guarantee, and it's fully encrypted and highly secure. So there's a lot of really exciting things that I encourage you to consider along those levels. In terms of, leveraging big data, again, a system like SMARTGov it's already big data ready. You're going to have a higher degree of accuracy in the tool sets that you're going to want for a robust system, like managing your permits and pulling out your reports and building your compliance requirements and so on. In terms of standardizing your processes, it's just key. Whether you're using SMARTGov or any other system, really learning a system that's going to help automate that is so important. And of course, then you having the ability to change your own automation, your configuration, I think is super important as well. So you should have the control and the choice that you're going to need moving forward to make changes and modifications, and SMARTGov is going to deliver all of that for you as well. You know, being able to extend your public services online and arm your citizens with tools, with information, with an access point into your processes whereby they can see what's taking place is so important. And this really goes into the open data requirements that are such a big deal, not only throughout the country, but boy, specifically here in California with what's taken place. And then really looking at the big picture in terms of, well, what type of software system is going to be the best. I'd really point you towards kind of looking for the best of both worlds, where you're going to have unmatched feature sets but still be able to tightly integrate that with any type of other additional internal systems that you have. And you know, that's kind of the SMARTGov advantage, is being able to deliver all of those things. I do appreciate it. I think we went a minute or two over, but you know, in terms of what's going on, encourage you to take a look at our website if you can. We're going to be doing a presentation coming up probably in December, case study focusing on Sunny Isles Beach, Florida, and they really are driving some new efficiencies, and they're doing a really good job measuring some performance indicators, and so we're excited to get those results from them and be able to present that on a case study. We'll do an online webinar similar to this and have those folks on. And with that, there might be questions. I'll leave this slide up for a minute or two. Please give a call to Serenity or myself. We'd love to talk to you, answer questions, or exchange emails on anything.
And we can always schedule a personal demo for you as well.
That's true.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be disconnected.